Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. This is Mary Grace. I'm Mary Grace, and I have my friend Dave with me. And we are just very excited to be able to bring you this show. Excited and honored to be a part of the digital army that is out there on the front lines, spreading truth. And I went live a week ago. In the aftermath of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, when an assassin's bullet just barely missed President Trump, uh, missed his head, got his ear. And we talked about that on the show. This is the first time we're going live since then. And if you have been on social media at all, you will notice that there's no end of conspiracies right now, of different theories of things that could have happened, things that might have happened, things that did happen. There's a lot that we don't know, but one thing that Dave and I try very hard to do is to bring you the truth. And if we don't know something, we're going to tell you up front that we don't know. We're never claiming to have insider knowledge. We're never claiming to have super secret squirrel telegraphs from people that you have never heard of. And so that's why we call this the conspiracy of truth. And this happens to be episode 17, which is our favorite number. And so this is what we're calling the Q plus edition. And if you missed the whole conversation that we had about Q, I recommend that you go back and watch episode 12 that we did, where it was an entire 2 hours of talking about that. But Dave, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion, as I know that many are.
Well, thanks for having me back on the show. And I hope we can find something to talk about because it's been kind of like dry lately. Not much going on.
I've been racking my brain, Dave. Like, what are we going to talk about today?
We'll figure something out.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about? As we're waiting a couple minutes for people to come in, I want to thank my moderators. I have people on the Rumble channel who are helping us today, and I also will be watching closely on the other chats. And I just want to thank everybody for taking part. Please let us know that you're watching. Please drop a comment, drop a thumbs up. If you're on the Rumble, go and hit the thumbs up underneath the video. That goes a long way in helping to push the video up into the stream so that other people can see it. Same thing on Facebook. Hit the hearts, hit the likes. When you're on X, please repost it, retweet it. I don't think you re-exit, you retweet it, even though it's no longer Twitter. But that's just how.
I think it's repost.
That's so boring.
Or something.
So anyway, we are on YouTube. We're on the interwebs, and so please, wherever you are, comment and let us know that you're watching. And if you're watching this on the replay, we do appreciate your comments. We do check, and we do want to see that you are here, and we want to interact.
Public service announcement.
Yes, public service.
Public service announcement.
Yeah.
Neither Mary nor I, nor Jordan Sather, nor anybody else who is a social media influencer is ever going to private message you on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on Twitter. We're not going to send you emails asking you to buy into our crypto scam or give you information. We do not, out of the blue, randomly private message people. If you get those messages, block those people. They're not from us. They never will be from us. I've been getting flooded with people saying, your email was hacked. I'm getting emails from some guy talking about QFS. No, it's scammers.
Yeah.
Do not.
Thank you.
Just block them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Absolutely. Also, please report imposter accounts on Rumble or Facebook.
Or Twitter.
Yeah, everywhere. I've been getting a lot of imposters on Rumble, and they're posting in the chat, and they look sort of like my name, but I'm a verified account on Rumble. So it has the green shield next to my name. Same with Dave. He has a verified account. So please just keep that in mind. And we want to do our best to protect you from these crazy scams. So not only do we want you to block them, but please report them. And I do have a contact at Rumble that removes these channels. So if you email me with a link to the channel or a screenshot, I will send it to them. It's info@marygracemedia.com. And that reminds me, just remember that if you want to make sure you get my emails before we go live on the show here, go to marygracemedia.com and scroll down and just opt in to that email list and you will get the emails. So, and Dave also has an email. You can email him through his website, prayingmedic.com. I almost said Mary Grace Media. Uh, he has different hair though. So, not the same. Okay, Dave, I don't even know where to start today. It's been a long week for me. A lot of my listeners know that I've been dealing with some health issues with my dad. He's been in the hospital twice in the last 2 weeks. And so I will give a quick update on that. He is home. We don't know the source of these blackout situations with him, but he has a heart monitor on and we're watching him. We're not really wanting to leave him alone much lately. But he's acting like nothing happened. You know, he's back to his usual self, maybe a little tired, but the hospital wears you out. So pray for me. It's been a long week because all of this came on the heels of what happened last week with President Trump. And so as you can imagine, Dave is trying to keep, to keep up with everything. I'm trying to keep up with everything and also take care of myself and my family. And a lot of us are in that position. I'm not the only one, but I do ask for your prayers because I'm pretty exhausted right now. And so it's a nice rainy day, so maybe I'll take a nap. Yesterday it was like all I could do to stay awake until bedtime. It's rainy here, Dave.
We do have thunderstorms in the forecast, but we
It's
also have a high of 114 forecast today. So.
We were having really hot temperatures. It was 106 last week, the day that I went to pick my dad up at the when I pulled up to pick him up at the door, 106. We
Yeah,
were having Arizona temperatures. It's not normal here. It gets hot here, but not like that. So today
yeah,
is like in the 70s and raining. It's perfect. It's like the
cool.
perfect weather.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, spiritual warfare
We're
net
gonna
beneath.
have raining volcanic steam. I guess it's gonna. Our humidity is like 55-60%, and it's been like 113, 114 for the last like 3 weeks. It's been crazy.
55% humidity. Are you
It's been
kidding
yeah.
me?
Our
That's
we had
that's that's nothing.
we've had a very early month. Well, that's that for us in Arizona. In the summertime, we usually have single digit humidities. Like it's 114, 115, but the humidity is 7 or 8%.
Oh,
And
right.
during the monsoon season, it goes up. So we're now dealing with 50 to 60% humidity and 113, 114 degrees. So it's pretty muggy outside.
I got you. Our
Anyway,
humidity right now is
uh,
76%,
I'm
but
not
it
going to
is
be a
raining.
weather whiner. Let's get on to
Yeah, let's
the
move
business.
on. Let's see. The thing I wanted to I want to talk about obviously we want to talk about what happened with this assassination attempt. And it's hard to know where to start. One of the things that I said when I went live last week was we always want to use the 36 to 72-hour rule. And one thing I want to remind people as people are processing what happened, as more reports come out, there's a lot of speculation. There are big accounts on social media that really do what I would call engagement farming, and they're posting a lot of things that are supposed breaking news, shocking stories about different players and people involved in this assassination attempt. Now, there's a lot that we know for sure that is important to take in without running down these rabbit trails of OMG, look at this. And so I want to encourage you to practice discernment, and everything that comes across your screen, give it 36 to 72 hours and just see what shakes out. Especially be careful about just randomly sharing all of the clickbait and the panic porn having to do with different theories coming out around this this situation. Do you want to add anything to that, Dave?
Yeah. When you asked me to go, if I wanted to go on a live stream with you, I don't know when that was. It seemed like a year ago.
A week ago.
I'm sure it was about a week. And you were asking about, I think you're asking about one of the Supreme Court decisions. I was like, I just didn't feel like it was a good time to go live on that issue because it seemed like the news cycle was shifting to something else. So then we have the assassination attempt on President Trump exactly a week ago, actually. And yeah, the 48, 72-hour rule. I have been up to my eyeballs trying to piece together what happened. And so I had a friend on Telegram yesterday asking me to do video updates and commentary and stuff. I'm very hesitant to do video updates in minute by minute fashion because this is one of those situations where we don't know what happened. I mean, yes, we know some guy tried to shoot Trump, but we don't know how many people, how many shooters there were. We don't know much about the shooter, his background. He supposedly had no social media history. The FBI and this, Secret Service in particular, was not forthcoming with information. There was a press conference, I think within 24 hours, Secret Service wasn't even there. It's all local cops. So I don't think it's helpful for me to go on and do a live stream, do a broadcast, and weigh in on these issues when I don't know really what's going on. There's been a lot of live streams on Twitter, the spaces, and people are asking me, "Hey, come on, we're going to talk about this and talk about that." And I'm like, "No, I'm doing research. I have to figure out what's going on." So I've just been researching and digging and looking at what information is available, what information is coming out. Every time there's a news cycle like this, regardless of what the issue is, whether it's COVID or some other issue, it takes a while to figure out who the reliable sources of information are. Because in every crisis, in every big news story, you're going to find a lot of people online commenting on the issue. Probably 80% of those people should be ignored because they don't know what they're talking about. They're either making things up, they're using poor sources, their sources don't exist, or their sources that exist don't have good information. There's a lot of that early on with the COVID thing, and then we started to get doctors coming out who were actually experts, subject matter experts, who were then teaching people and illustrating the finer points of virology and vaccines and all that stuff. There was a lot of bad information early on in COVID. There's a lot of bad information with this shooting against President Trump. There's all kinds of people, like you said, trying to get clicks, trying to get engagement, because the more clicks, the more engagement you got. If you have a paid account on Twitter, you can make money off of it, and on Rumble and other things too. And my deal is I don't care about making money off of this stuff. I have been 24/7 from the time I wake up in the morning till the time I go to bed at night, digging, researching, trying to figure out what happened, what did not happen, trying to debunk some of the claims. Well, one of the things that I would suggest when it comes to things like this is when you see someone making a fantastic a claim about something that they believe happened, go through a little bit of analysis and try to see if you can debunk what they're saying. If you can shoot holes, pardon the pun, not intended, if you can shoot holes, if you can punch holes in their theory, in their assertions, if they say this happened and this is the person who did it and here's why and here's the picture, here's the video, see if you can poke holes in that explanation. If you can't, if you cannot debunk it, then put that in the category of, okay, maybe this is what happened. But if you can very easily, very quickly debunk something, you should just hang on to that. Now, here's an example. I saw a lot of people online posting pictures of a water tower, and they're all insisting that this water tower has a black spot, some kind of a black object, like halfway between the top and the bottom of the main part of the water tower. There's this black thing, and people are saying that thing was moving when they heard the gunfire on the video, and they're saying that's a shooter on the water tower. Like, really, between like the top and the bottom of the round part of the water tower, there's this black thing that's moving. Well, I kept hearing people say that was a shooter because it was moving during the gunfiring, and I'm like, okay,
Right.
so number one, what you're suggesting is there is a person who's either rappelling halfway down the top of the water tower, and then they stop and lock off their rope on a figure eight, and they start firing while they're in mid rappel, or they're levitating or floating somehow 120 feet off the ground. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right.
And then people started coming up with better pictures of the water tower, and it's very clear there was a dark blue or black star on the water tower, and that's what people were seeing. Now, with respect to the water tower shooter, because there's a lot of people that are saying that there was a shooter on the water tower, and I'm going to have to go down this rabbit trail because there are some things that people are saying in witness accounts that are worth considering, but you have to consider them, I think, in the right light. So, and I got into a long discussion 2 days ago on this subject on X, on Twitter, because people just kept on putting these videos and images in my mentions and in my news, in my feed, and I was like, okay, I have to deal with this. So what I saw early on was people posting videos of interviews that the news had done with witnesses who said something about the water tower.
Okay.
So, and I'm just going to jump right in and start to give you some methods that I use to arrive at the truth or the falsity of these various accounts.
Good.
So there's people posting these videos, and they're saying, this person said there was a shooter on the water tower. Watch this video. This proves that there was a shooter on the water tower. I'm like, okay, I'll listen to the video. So I listened to it. And this one woman said, oh, yeah, well, I saw somebody shooting toward the water tower. And I'm like, okay. So this woman's testimony was she saw somebody shooting toward the water tower. And a lot of people online have said that is proof, that's an indicator that there was a shooter on the water tower because of this person's testimony. I'm like, if you just listen to what she says, she's saying she saw someone shooting at the water tower. Okay, where was the shooter? Where was she? Was a person shooting at the water tower? Why would they shoot at the water tower? None of this makes any sense. Okay, so that is one testimony that I've seen reported repeatedly saying that that's evidence that there was a water tower shooter. Now, there's another testimony out there from a woman who says she saw somebody, she said a sniper killed the shooter in the water tower.
Interesting.
Something to the effect of, I saw them kill the shooter or the sniper in the water tower. This woman thinks that she saw a shooter. She said in the water tower, maybe she meant on the water tower. And she believes that she saw the sniper in or on the water tower being shot by someone else, and so she doesn't describe where the shooter was, where either of the shooters were exactly, because she says in the water tower. And then we don't know who she's referring to as the one who killed the person in the water tower. She doesn't really elaborate on any of that. And so this is another one of those testimonies where I'm like, okay, what are you even saying? What are you claiming? Are you claiming that you saw the sniper in the water tower die? How did you see them die if that freaking water tower is like a quarter of a mile away? I mean, even on high res zoomed in videos, you can barely see any details on that water tower. How was she, with unaided vision, she obviously didn't have binoculars, how would she be able to see someone on top of the water tower be shot and fall? Because a lot of the view to that water tower was obstructed from people who were there at the event. So I'm going through all of these claims by people, and I'm trying to kind of weed through what is testimony from a reliable witness and what is testimony from an unreliable witness. And I was trying to help people understand this. Like, just because you get a testimony from someone about what they believe they saw happen doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Let me give you an example. As a paramedic, my job is to interview witnesses to shootings, stabbings, motor vehicle accidents, plane crashes, bus crashes, all kinds of stuff. We have to go, one of the things we have to do on scene is we have to interview the victims and occasionally the witnesses and find out what happened. You were there, you were in the accident, you saw the accident, you were the driver, you were a passenger, a witness, what happened? So sometimes we'll have to interview more than one person. And if you work in law enforcement, this is your job. You get to interview witnesses and victims. And what you'll find out is that if you interview 10 people who were witnesses to the same event, you're going to get 10 different stories about what happened.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to find 80 to 90% of the people who will agree on the basic facts of the event. And then you're going to find 10 to 20% outliers who will disagree on the basic facts of the event and have a significantly different account of what happened.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So here's I'm almost done. And here's what happens. Some people just process things differently. Depending on your viewpoint, your vantage point, depending on your life experiences, your mind can actually take that event and transpose upon that event false memories of things that didn't actually happen. And I'm not going to go into the psychology of false memories, but there are some people who simply do not recall things accurately. I have sat around with my brothers and sisters and talked about events that happened at family reunions and things that have happened. And I listened to their account and I think, were you even there? Because it's definitely not what I saw happen.
Yeah.
That's not what I remember happening. They describe it completely differently. So I'm saying all of this to simply say this. Just because someone says they heard or saw something happen, it doesn't mean that they are a reliable witness. A lot of these people are unreliable witnesses. They just are remembering things incorrectly or adding things in that didn't actually happen for whatever reason. And I got a lot of heat on social media because I'm kind of pushing back on some of these narratives.
Yeah.
Like, look, let's just kind of pump the brakes a little bit and let's get more information. Let's get some factual information. What do we know for a fact about this attempted assassination? I mean, yeah, there's people out there who are speculating and spitballing and giving their accounts of what they think happened. That's fine. I've proposed my own theories, but what I'm trying to do more than anything else is gather information from reliable sources or people who should be considered more reliable sources than other people. Some people are just better sources than others. Not all information is of equal value. And that's the discernment you were talking about. We need to exercise discernment. There are just some people who do not exercise discernment very well. They let their confirmation bias run away with them. A lot of people simply cannot believe that this is a single shooter event. Their mind works in such a way that they think there has to have been a second shooter. We got to find out who that shooter was, and it's just a matter of finding enough photos and video and testimony, and we will come up with a second shooter. Their premise from the beginning is it has to be multiple shooters. That's just how their mind thinks, and and that's not exercising discernment. That is coming to a crisis with a preconceived idea about what happened and then trying to find bits of information to confirm what you already believe to be true. I did not come to this conversation with the preconceived idea that there was a cover up, that the Secret Service was inept or corrupt, or that there was an intentional assassination attempt by the deep state. I didn't approach this with that presumption. I approached this from the presumption of I was listening on X on a live stream when I heard the gunfire during the rally. And I was like, honey, I just heard gunfire. And she's like, I heard it too. And from that point on, we started to try to piece together what happened without jumping to too many conclusions. So I'll land it there for now. Your thoughts?
Mhm. This is important, and I'm watching the chat as you go through this process. And here's where I want to give my input on this, because you know we as humans are designed to make meaning and to find meaning in everything that we do and everything that we experience. And so the urge and the urgency to come up with an explanation for what happened, I think that's normal. That's the way we're designed. And it is critical that we do research, that we find out for ourselves, and that we ask questions. I mean, that's what separates us, as human beings. And so the what I think what Dave is doing here is he's urging everyone to ask questions, to put on your real journalism hat and ask who, what, when, where, why, how, the five W's and the H. This is what he's doing. And I think that sometimes, especially on social media, we get into these little information silos and we become committed to throwing our hat in the ring of what answers our confirmation bias. And that's what Dave is saying. And when that happens, then we actually put up a partition that prevents us from hearing and receiving the truth. And that's a dangerous place to be. And I think we've seen this. I mean, I've been guilty of it on some levels sometimes when it comes to certain topics. Like we just want certain things to be true, and so we all find ourselves in that place from time to time. But what I want to urge people to do, and what Dave wants, is for people to practice that skepticism, a healthy skepticism. Not that you dismiss everything out of hand, but that you just take a step back and start asking questions. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. And if, I know that sometimes people don't like to stand out, and they don't like to get criticized, and they don't like controversy. I think a lot of people fall into that category. And so it's easier to go along with just what you're being told. But here we are, as a nation, as a society, we are unwinding and dealing with the consequences of the aftermath of doing that for a long, long time. and of accepting at face value what the media has told us, what people in positions of authority have told us. And if there's one thing I have figured out on social media and in the new media space is that there for every for every person who jumps out of the mainstream media matrix and goes searching for truth, there are probably 10 opportunists waiting to give them a soft landing to tickle their ears with a new version of the truth. And so, as we bring you this commentary, as we bring you this analysis, we are really urging you to stop and to ask yourself, what is going on here, and who is this person that's telling me their expert opinion? Who is this person and what is their track record? Who are they associated with? What are even, who are they taking money from? That's an important question to ask. Look at their other social media. How long have they been in this information space? These are things that, as we become careful and thoughtful consumers and disseminators of information, that we have a responsibility to look deeper at the source of the information that we're finding. And so I corroborate what Dave is saying. And it doesn't mean that Dave may never come to the same conclusion as some of these people. It just means that he is going into an analytical space because he has integrity and he doesn't want to be throwing stuff out just because it sounds good in the moment. And so that's like our promise to you is that we're gonna really refrain from baseless speculation and sharing things that are just intended for clickbait and panic porn. That's really where we are. And I see people in the chat saying things like, you're the only source of credible information that I can count on. They say that about Dave as well, and I appreciate that. However, I don't want to be the be all end all of this your source of information. And this is where prayer comes in as well, where really seeking God. And he says that if you want wisdom, to seek wisdom from God and he will give it to you. And so that is what we're talking about here. It's taking the information and then exercising your God-given wisdom to know what to do with it.
Yep.
That's where we are, right?
Yep. Knowledge is information. Wisdom is knowing what to do with it. There's a lot
Yes.
of people who have knowledge but don't have wisdom.
Yes, exactly. And I think on a bigger scale of what happened, this is something that I talk about a lot. I'm a 30,000 foot person. Dave is more of a detailed and minutia person. And that's why I think that we have a good conversations together. And but overall, one question that I would ask with regard to this attempt on Trump's life, with regard to the coming election, with regard to anything that happens, any crisis that comes up, which I'm sure there will be more between now and November 5th and even beyond that. Um, when it comes to finding the answers and getting information about what happened, how do I frame this? My concern isn't so much chasing down the minutia of, was there a shooter? Was there this? Was there that? My concern is Trump is alive and he survived it. How did that happen? And then also, what happens going forward? And what are the implications of this for him, for his family, for his candidacy, for our nation, and for the world? And my take on that is that there's a lot of good coming out of this. And so, I don't want to get bogged down in the minutia of, was there a water tower? Was there another shooter? Was there this? Was there that? Because that is what I would call majoring on the minors. I'm not saying it's not important, but there's bigger issues here. What do
Right.
you think, Dave?
No, exactly. Whether there was one shooter or two shooters or three shooters is not really a consequential question,
Right.
because at the end of the day, someone tried to kill Trump. Trump survived it. And now we have to move forward as a country. How many shooters there were? Nice to know that information. Eventually, we may figure out the truth. But right now, we have bigger issues to deal with, which is a potential of a stolen election, the implosion of the Democrat Party, the internet going down. I mean, there's all kinds of issues, and it's interesting to discuss the minutia, but sometimes we have to look at the 30,000-foot view.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I agree with you 100%. I did
Exactly.
want to talk about one thing real quick,
Yep.
and that is, gosh, if you are one of those people who just wants to dig into the minutia and get to the truth of, how many shooters were there and where were they standing and everything else, and how many drones were they flying and how many times did they visit the site in Butler prior to the rally, because all that information is coming out. That information is available from credible sources. I'm astounded at the amount of information that is actually coming out over the last week about the shooter and what he did. I thought he would just essentially remain this ghosty person we would know nothing about. All this information is coming out from reliable sources, that he had a major depressive disorder diagnosis. Both of his parents were mental health counselors. Let's see, what do we know? He apparently flew a drone over the rally site several times, visited the rally site several times in the weeks prior to the shooting. It's just kind of crazy what we're learning about this shooter. And a lot of this information is coming from people that are leaking from inside the government. There's people in the Secret Service, people in the FBI who are leaking this information during the investigation. For whatever reason, they want us to know this information, and it's coming out through reliable news channels, people who have a good track record for reporting honestly. It's not the clickbait jockeys on social media who are just trying to grift off of sensational headlines. So if you're looking for that kind of information, just wait. It's coming out. We're learning all kinds of things that are just kind of shocking.
Yeah.
And there's, if you're trying to build the conspiracy, don't worry. It's being built right now in real time, and we're watching it happen.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder. And for example, I've been following Dan Bongino somewhat.
He's got good insights. I
Can
mean,
you
he was in the Secret Service. He has
yeah,
contacts. He knows people. He
hold on
knows
just a
things.
second. I've got to mute for just a second. Can you
All right.
take over?
Yeah, I got it. Bongino, good thing that you brought him up. There's a lot of people who don't like Bongino. I have mixed feelings about Dan. Sometimes his anger just kind of is not really my cup of tea. For the same reason I don't really listen to Alex Jones. Alex Jones is so emotional, and he goes on these emotional rants, and he gets angry, and he's screaming and stuff. Bongino kind of does the same thing, and I don't really like people who get very emotionally involved in their commentary, because to me, it kind of almost feels like they're trying to drive an emotional response from their viewers, and I don't like that. I try to present information without emotion, without hyperbole, because I just want to present information and let you decide whether you believe it or not. So that said, I think Bongino is one of the people if you're looking for somewhat reliable sources of information, Bongino is probably one of those people. He has worked in the Secret Service. He obviously has friends who still work in the service, who work in different agencies, federal law enforcement. He knows the agency. He understands protocols and SOPs. He's a reasonably good commentator on this subject. So if you're looking for someone who might be a reliable source of information, Bongino is one of those people. He's a subject matter expert. Doesn't mean you have to believe everything he says, but he is a subject matter expert. He certainly knows more about this than someone like Lynn Wood or Charlie Ward, for example. So, you know, choosing sources of information is critical.
Good. Thank you. I think I got most of that. So teeny tiny fire to put out. We're good. Okay.
Right.
It's all good. All good.
Right.
So yeah, that's, I
So
guess.
you've been listening to Bongino a little bit.
Yep. I've been listening to him, and one thing I will say too is that anytime anybody you're listening to, one of my rules of thumb is that, we all have different tolerance levels, and we all have different levels of sensitivity. And for me, sometimes, like I like Dan Bongino, but I mean, he's got like high levels of testosterone, and he can cross over from information to black pill like that. And what does that mean? It means that I want to guard the atmosphere of my heart, and I don't want to allow myself to go into a place of doom. And when Dave talks about, getting emotional about things, I everybody has their own line where it's important to identify, have I gone from the point of just gathering information to having an emotional response that is then going to color not only how I think about this, but everything else that I do? And so is it going to have an impact on my overall effectiveness for staying in the fight and for being present, even with my family and with all of the other responsibilities that I have? This is an important point, and it's a discipline. It's a mental discipline. It's an emotional discipline that we all have a responsibility to practice. And I think that is a word that we would hear from somebody like General Flynn, somebody like Boone Cutler, who's been on the show. Protect your mind, control your emotions. That is what Dave is talking about. Uh, Somebody's objecting in the chat and saying, if we don't get emotionally invested, we won't do anything. There's a fine line there, guys. Because again, if you are driven by your emotions, then you are going to be manipulated by every wind that comes along. That's where we are here. Okay.
People can take action based on logic and reasoning, and you don't have to have an emotional driver to take action. It's not necessary.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, we all do have emotions.
right.
I have, love of country, love of my friends, love of my family. I want to protect my family. I take actions because I love my family. I'm preparing,
Yeah.
right, for the crisis because I love my family. That's an emotional driver.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also preparing for crisis because logically, to me, it just makes sense. When you have the FBI director out there telling everybody we're going to have a cyber attack and it's going to take down our critical infrastructure, I don't have to be emotional about that. To me, that's logic. Like, oh, I should probably make some preparations in case that happens, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I think it comes with practice and experience as well. I'll give an example. So last week when I was with my dad and he had an episode which I thought was a stroke, we were actually camping, and so I went through a series of steps to try to deal with the situation, and within a couple of minutes I was surrounded by people who were ready to help, and we were waiting for the EMTs to get there. But in the meantime, there was a nurse who came. There was a couple, there were different people, and I didn't know their abilities. I didn't know what they were capable of, but I just started very calmly giving people orders in a nice way, right? You do this, because I knew what needed to be done so that I could be ready to get in the car and follow the ambulance to the hospital. And so my focus was on communicating what was going on with my dad, and then the next step was to be able to get there and be with him once he got there. And so there were a lot of emotions happening, but I compartmentalized them. And, I remember as this was all going on, I got on the phone with my sister. And it's easy, especially when you're talking to loved ones, to want to fall apart. And I said to her, I said, I'm getting my thoughts in order right now as I'm talking to you, and then I'll process all of this later with you. I just wanted to let you know what was going on. And that is the part that I think all of us want to develop. And I later saw one of the couples that came to help us, and they said to me, "Your presence of mind in that situation was remarkable. I don't know how you did it." And then I remembered I used to teach kindergarten. So there's your answer. Because, I learned how to function and keep other people alive without operating from emotion. And this is what Dave and I are trying to explain to you, that as you get more invested in protecting your family, protecting your community, being involved, the emotional component, just it has to be compartmentalized. It doesn't mean that you don't take time later, right? I mean, I could use a good cry right now. I mean, maybe I'll just go watch a Hallmark movie and cry. But that's not a bad thing to do. But in the moment, that couldn't be what drives my decisions about it. And I think President Trump is a perfect example of this. When this crisis was taking place, uh, there's years and years and years of training that I think kicked in with him. The moment that he felt something on his ear, he went down. He was faster than the Secret Service. And I don't think that's by accident. And he had the presence of mind to do all of the things that he did in the next 2 minutes. And, as they were getting him out of the situation, that is what we're talking about. He didn't just fold emotionally. um, does that mean that he hasn't been processing this? Absolutely not. And when he gave his speech at the RNC, he was a different man. And he said to the world, he said, "I will tell this story once and not again." And so that's, in my mind, that is his way of managing the emotional component of this and not reliving it over and over and over again. What do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Specifically, when you're talking about Trump going down after that bullet grazed his ear, um, you know, you could kind of, you don't have to be a terribly insightful person to spitball, and come up with some assumptions about what Trump was thinking at the time. Look at his reaction, right? He goes down. The Secret Service dogpiles him. He's got 800 pounds of people, laying on top of him. And then his shoe comes off, and you could hear on the audio, he's like, "Let me get my shoe. Let me get my shoe." Right? He's trying to get his shoe. This is a time when it would be easy to give into emotion, but he was obviously pretty clear-headed.
Yeah.
And he had a thought process that you can see marching out. As the Secret Service was getting him up, allowing him to stand up, he's like, "Let me get my shoe. Let me get my shoe on." And then there was a pause, and they're trying to rush him off stage. And he's like, "Wait, wait, wait." Right? Why is he telling the Secret Service to wait? Because he knows he cannot let them rush him off stage, because people are terrified, wondering, is his candidacy over? Is he done as a candidate? Where is MAGA going? Where is our country going? And he decides he's going to put up his fist and fight, fight, fight. Right? He had the presence of mind. He was thinking logically. I have to send a message, not just to my supporters, but to the enemy, that you're not going to take me out. You didn't take me out. You're not going to take me out. And these people are going to fight, and I'm going to fight. So I'm sure he had a lot of emotions rushing through him, but he had the presence of mind to realize, I'm a leader, I'm a commander, I have to send a message, and this is my message.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's just Donald Trump. That's who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fighter. You heard the testimony from everyone, from Dana White and everybody else. Like, he's the toughest guy I've ever met. Like,
Yeah.
who could go through the impeachments, the hoaxes, the Mueller investigation, the criminal trials, trying to bankrupt him, lawfare, all the stuff that he's gone through, the slander, the Stormy Daniels stuff. Who would have the fortitude and the strength to stand up under all of that assault from every government agency, every politician who is, a swamp creature, law firms, the media? I only know one person who has the kind of character that could do that, and that is Donald Trump. He is a once in a century leader. Some people have commented that they haven't seen that kind of bravery and courage since Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was actually shot while he was giving a speech, and he insisted on continuing the speech.
Yeah.
A 90-minute message after being shot. Teddy Roosevelt was a badass. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And Trump is in that category of badassery. You're
Yeah.
never going to, in another century, we might have another person like Trump. We're not going to see another person like him for 100 years, probably.
I think so. And it's interesting too, because I was thinking about this, that there are people who want to discredit him as commander in chief because they say that he didn't serve in the military. And that's one of the things that the left uses to disparage him. And I think that what we saw last week would dispel any notion that this man would not be fit to lead troops into battle. And as I was thinking about what happened and his reaction and just what we've seen over this last week, I keep thinking about a scene from Henry V, where the king goes, he dresses himself like a peasant, and he walks through the camp of his men. And have you ever do you know that scene?
I'm familiar with the storyline. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, they don't know that it's the king. And he's doing that because he wants to take the pulse of his soldiers, but he also wants to encourage them and to give them the courage to keep fighting. And it's a very powerful scene. And for some reason, it keeps coming to mind. It's not a direct parallel, but in some ways it is. And I think an example of how this is a parallel comes to mind when President Trump was giving his speech the other night at the RNC. It was delightful how he just kept going and going, because he said, I got interrupted and I'm just going to finish what I started.
Right. I had a rally, 4 days ago that got interrupted. So let's finish the rally.
He's like, yeah, we're going to pick up where we left off, literally with the chart. Right.
Right.
And so the thing though that I thought was just precious was when he started talking about Reverend Graham. And he was talking about the letter that he got, and he didn't have to do that. It's personal, and he was talking about the letter that he got from Reverend Graham, where, and he could have just said, right, he could have just said, I got a nice letter from Reverend Graham. But then he takes himself to an everyday human level of saying, the pastor reprimanded me and told me to watch my language. And then he takes it to a whole nother level where no human on the planet cannot relate. And he says, and he looks right at him. He goes, I'm trying, Pastor. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. And, I love that, because that's what makes him one of us. I mean, it's just, everybody can relate to that. Everybody. And I get so tired of having, especially Christians, apply this religious litmus test to him and him alone. They don't do it
Right.
to anybody else who's
Right.
a candidate, anybody else who's in office. I mean, all these other people can be the biggest hypocrites on the planet, but there's a set of standards that's applied to Trump that's applied to him alone. And he's not a pastor. He never we don't want a pastor in
Yeah.
the presidency.
He's not applying for sainthood, people.
Yeah, and
Um,
so that was just so perfect. It was like, yeah, I'm doing my level best up here, preacher.
yeah.
And
You
so
know,
yeah,
one of
I
the other
love that.
criticisms of Trump is we all know that he is a vengeful person, right? That's been one of the big knocks on
Yeah,
Trump is
yeah,
he's motivated by revenge. He has openly said in many interviews, you know, you do a number on me, I'm going to do a number on you. I'm going to
yeah,
get you back. And a lot of people who are Christians are like, oh, that's not very Christian. He should be forgiving. He should like forgive him 70 times. Okay, yeah, he should. But guess what? He's not. Trump, unlike a lot of virtue signaling politicians who tell you publicly how forgiving they are, how loving they are, how compassionate they are, how they're such a good person, and they just virtue signal like crazy. Trump is very transparent about who he is. Whether you like it or not, Trump does not tell you things about himself that are not true. He will be the first person to tell you that he has a need for vengeance against
mhm,
his enemies, and he's very open about it. You may not like it. You may think that that disqualifies him and he's going to go to hell because of it. But at least Trump is honest and he's willing to tell people what is really going on inside of him. Right.
yeah, yeah, and yeah,
And with this issue with his language, you know, and Anons love it when Trump drops the F bomb in a rally. Anons are like, yeah, celebrating like, yeah, man, he's one of us. Um,
yeah,
and
Trump is
and
not driving around with a fish sticker on his car.
and overly religious people
Mhm,
who are always observing other people's behavior and judging them because their behavior does not meet, you know, is not hitting the bar high enough. They're just going to criticize and judge Trump, and that's fine. They can do whatever they want. But what I noticed, and you noticed it, and a lot of people noticed it, is when he came in to the RNC convention the first night that he was there, it looked like he was choking back tears the entire time he was walking up that stairway to his seat. His face was different. His countenance was different. He had this like sad, humble countenance I'd never seen on him before. And as I watched him come up that hallway, make that corner, and go up the stairs to his seat, I was like, that dude has been changed. He is different.
yeah,
And most of us, if you've been listening, that prophecy where that one guy had that dream back in March where he said, I saw Trump, he got shot in the ear, and that that event changed him spiritually. He became a born again, on fire follower of Jesus. And he said, I know that a lot of people say that he's a Christian, but I'm telling you in this dream, I knew that gunshot wound to his ear changed him profoundly.
yeah,
And when I heard that prophecy, I was like, you know, I wonder if that's actually going to play out. And I have seen in Trump, just, you know, obviously I don't meet him in person, but in observing him in that first 10 minutes when he spoke last night, and he's recounting that story, he's talking about his story with, you know, Reverend Graham and being reprimanded for his, you know, profanity. I think he's a different person. I think he has gone through some profound changes as a result of what happened.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting because, I have conversations with a lot of people um, when I do speaking engagements and things like that, and on my channel. And this is a point that comes up a lot around Trump. His irreverence, or is he a Christian? They really want to know. And one of the things that I say a lot is, I do believe he's Christian, and the as far as the sanctification goes, that's the job of Holy Spirit. It's not your job, it's not my job. And this is this is the part where, if you're truly concerned about the way he acts or the things he says or how he presents himself, that's between Trump and God. And that, the thing that I would encourage is pray for him. Pray for him because, he has literally the weight of the world on his shoulders. He doesn't need you throwing stones and
It could be,
judging him.
it could be that the Holy Spirit is actually speaking to you and asking you to pray for Trump about that issue. If you discern that Trump has some character flaw, like Mary said, pray for him, because it could be that the Lord is highlighting that for you, so you'll pray for him.
Absolutely. I just put this picture
Possible.
up because it was so meaningful to me. Um,
Yeah.
him on the ground, right? Whoever got that photo, it's amazing the timing of it.
Yeah.
For those of you who are just listening, this is when Trump was down on the ground. It looks like his hands are folded together in prayer, and somebody made a meme. It says "Divine Intervention, Make America Great Again." It's a very powerful image, and so I think this is really good. What Dave is saying, that if you see it, right? We had this saying in our family that if you if you see something, like if you notice that something's broken, then
Fix
fix
it.
it. Right? Just
Yes.
don't go around and tell somebody else it's broken. And I think this is a really good point, is that he needs our prayers, you guys. I mean, he's got a lot on his shoulders, a lot. And we can see, the other thing that I would say is look at the fruit. Watch what was happening at the RNC the other night when his grandchildren were there. Watch the words of his granddaughter Kai, who talked about him. And I mean, just the most precious thing. She was just
Yeah.
standing up there and saying, he gives us candy and sodas when our parents aren't looking. And then people are saying that having little Carolina on his lap during the debate was staged, or during the speech during the RNC. You can't stage that. If anybody who's ever taken part in a wedding where you have children involved, I used to do wedding photography. The thought of getting a 3-year-old, or I don't know how she old, like 3 or 4 4-year-old child to perform on command and do anything on command, you can't. Believe me, you can't. And so the love and the care and the connection that he has with his grandchildren, that's genuine. You can't fake that. You may be able to fake it with an older child, but not a 4-year-old. That's just not
Mary,
happening.
Rasmussen did a poll.
Yeah.
They polled people who self-identify as Democrats.
Yeah.
1/3 of Democrats said they believe that Trump staged the shooting.
That's crazy.
That tells you a little bit where we're at in this country politically, when a
Yeah.
significant number of people, millions, tens of millions of people, believe that Trump staged his own assassination. For what? To get sympathy because he doesn't have a big enough base, because he's too far down in the polls, like because he's an egomaniac. It's just, it's kind of bizarre how people think about this whole
Yeah.
thing. And no matter, it's just crazy, as a lot of us are just seeing more and more transparency in Trump and more of who he is as a person. There's this other group of people who just keep on going down this rabbit hole, believing that Trump is this narcissistic dictator like Hitler who is just deceiving the entire world about everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's kind of insane.
My
Like
question
Scott,
about that.
like Scott Adams said years ago, there's two movies that are playing right next to each other. Some people are watching one movie and some people are watching another movie, and it's two completely different movies. And by the way, I
Yeah.
don't I don't listen to Scott Adams, but one of my admins does, Heather, and she was listening to Scott on his podcast, I think the day after the shooting, and Scott Adams, who's an atheist or agnostic, said, "Well, it does look like the good Lord has chosen Trump. And I say that I'm not even a believer. Like,
Yeah, 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 I think so too, and, my question for the people who think that he is going to go full Hitler this time around, that it's going to be the worst thing ever, literally shaking, about what he's gonna do in a Trump presidency. The question I have is this: how come he didn't do it the first 4 years? Like, what happened? How
right.
come people weren't put in camps? I mean,
He had
how
four
co
years to put
yeah,
people in concentration
it's
camps, to
yeah.
prosecute all of his enemies. Didn't do any of that. Why?
How
Why did he
come
not do it?
yeah, how come he signed the First Step Act to let people who are unfairly incarcerated and given, uh, unfair lengthy sentences, how come he signed that to reverse those sentences? That, like, had can somebody show me where Hitler did that, especially for minorities? I mean, if he's literally Hitler, just can you let's here's what I would do if somebody really cares to have this conversation. I would go point by point through Trump's policies in 26 from 2016 to 2020, and I would just say, "Okay, let's look at this policy. Can you show me where Hitler did the same type of thing?"
Yeah.
Let's look at this policy. Let's talk about the his focus on um, pro-life and choosing Supreme Court justices that would reverse the abortion. So Hitler was a eugenicist and he was pro-abortion, and he especially targeted minorities and the mentally infirm uh, with abortion. And so, can you show me where Trump stepped up his focus on killing more babies in the womb? Because if he's Hitler, then let's do a side by side comparison on Trump's policies and show me where he's literally Hitler and how he's going to come. Like, is he going to reverse course in 2024 and become Hitler? This is what Dave and I are talking about when it comes to logical thinking. So instead of telling people, no, he's not Hitler, ask them, show me side by side the policies of Trump and the policies of Hitler, and let me just see how they align and how you think they're going to align going forward. And then maybe we can have a conversation. But you're just spouting talking points that you don't even understand.
A
Okay.
lot of this comes down to the fact that the commentators on TV, they're liars, and you can tell they're liars if you just go back in history for a year or two and dig up some of the old videos of them talking about Trump. There's a well-known video. I posted it on Twitter a number of times, where Morning Joe is talking on his show about Trump, and he says, all this stuff about Trump being a racist, it's nonsense. He goes, Mika and I, we hung out with him. We were in his house. We were in his inner circle. We knew him for years. He never said anything racist. There is not a racist bone in his body. And he said, I'll say it now, and I'll swear on a stack of Bibles, there is nothing racist about Trump. That's Morning Joe, like 7 or 8 years ago, saying that. And now, because it's convenient, because it's the new script, that he's doing everything he can to demonize Trump, to the point where MSNBC took his show off the air the day after the shooting, the Monday after the shooting, I should say, because they were afraid that someone was going to say something inappropriate that would inflame more violence. And so they preempted their show and took it off. Van Jones. I'm not sure where Van Jones is at right now on Trump, but Van Jones literally worked with Trump on the criminal justice reform
Yes.
project. And so did a lot of other African-American leaders and Hispanic leaders. These people know what Trump is all about. And they're just pushing this narratives because they're being told to push a narrative.
That's so true, and that's so important to keep in mind. And speaking of Van Jones, I this brings me to a point that I think people I think it would help at this point to talk a little bit about Trump's choices for endorsements and even his vice president
Yeah.
choice.
Fair.
And
Some
yeah,
time.
let's talk a little bit about that. So, one of the things that I think it was a major theme of the RNC was unity, and also diversity in the true sense of the word,
Yep.
not virtue signaling, not just pandering to people because of their victimhood, but embracing people in spite of where they've come from. And one thing that people kind of forget sometimes is that President Trump used to be a Democrat, and a lot of the people,
General Flynn is a lifelong Democrat.
yeah, General Flynn is a Democrat,
I was
and
raised a Democrat.
some of the people that have come out in the strongest support of Trump have been Democrats, and I who turned and maybe didn't even stop being classical Democrats, but understood the radical direction that the Democrat Party has taken. And so JD Vance, I don't think he was a Democrat, but JD
No.
Vance comes from middle America, and there's a lot about him that I think is appealing to a number of people, but also he's younger. And I've always said that Trump thinks generationally, and he knows he's not going to be here forever. And it's super important to have somebody to pass the torch to. But I want to address some other endorsements that Trump has made very quickly and then come back to JD Vance,
Okay.
because this is important when it comes to issues, when it comes to getting legislation passed and working across the aisle. The First Step Act is a good example of that, of the importance and the necessity of bringing Democrats on board. And there used to be a time when that was pretty common practice. When Trump came into office, the Congress became split ideologically down party lines like you've never seen, and that's because of Nancy Pelosi, because of Chuck Schumer. That was intentional. Prior to that, even Republican or Democrat presidents could get legislation passed across the aisle, and I'm pretty sure that Trump wants to go back to that and to do what he can to get past the Trump derangement syndrome and all of the roadblocks that are put up by extremists.
Yep.
And this is, I'm going to say something that may really upset people, and it's okay. I don't need you to be happy with what I'm going to say, but I want you to consider it. And that is that one of the reasons that President Trump did not endorse Bob Good in the 5th District of Virginia and endorsed his competitor was that Bob Good is on the Freedom Caucus. And in some ways, the Freedom Caucus has actually been I don't know if I want to use the word extreme. They have been kind of a hard-lined faction that has, in some ways, prevented Trump from getting the ball down the field, because they have stood on ideology in ways that at this time haven't necessarily been helpful. Does that mean that he doesn't value their opinions and their stance on things? I don't think it does. But I think as a pragmatist, in some ways, Trump needs to just get the ball down the field and not have his own team tackling him every time he tries to make a play. Um, and so, with that in mind, another thing that I think Trump does sometimes is that he looks at an individual like Bob Good, um, and he realizes that because of the ideological stance that this person takes, that that Bob Good has um, so many eyes focused on him that it's actually detracting from the overall mission. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like when you have a star player and all of the defense is doing everything they can to take that player out, it actually like stops the game from moving ahead. And these are just my thoughts. It's just my thoughts. And because people wonder, like, why did he do that? Why did he go against somebody who's on the Freedom Caucus? I just think that he needs to, first of all, he needs to get in office. And I think that he needs to have a little bit of a more moderate team with him so that he can just get there and get some momentum. That's just my thoughts. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. One of the big obstacles to Trump's first administration success was he was fighting tooth and nail people like Paul Ryan and other both
Yeah.
Democrats and rhinos, and they were doing everything they could to prevent his agenda from going through Congress, from becoming law. He had to start writing executive orders like crazy because he just couldn't work. He couldn't get Congress to work with him. Even when he had a so-called Republican majority, it was mostly establishment swampy people, and that severely hampered his ability to get his
Yeah.
stuff done. If he comes in to office in January and has that same problem where he either has Democrat majorities in the House and Senate or Rhino-led Republican majorities, he's not going to get much done. It's going to be the same thing. We have got to get out, and we have got to get people elected. If we have elections, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Who will help Trump move the ball down the field? So yeah, I agree. And going back to JD Vance, there's a lot of people are online opining and criticizing JD because he's said a lot of nasty things about Trump. Well, like a lot of people who are good MAGA patriots today, they didn't start out that way. They had to come around and see that their own thinking was wrong, that their own belief system was wrong, their way of approaching politics was wrong. And somewhere along the way, JD Vance got red-pilled, apparently, into believing that Trump actually is the guy that is best for America right now. And I'm not going to go into all of the innuendo and the criticism and JD's past and all their stuff. We just don't have time for that. So my perspective on JD Vance is he's a vice president. He's not the president. He's not the one who's going to be pushing the executive orders and leading the country. He's essentially, he is a diplomat. He's going to be probably like another Secretary of State. That's kind of the role that Pence played. Pence did a lot of diplomatic duties. He kind of served as like a second Secretary of State. He did a lot of overseas diplomatic missions. The vice president's job is to represent Trump and his policies to the world, whether that's internationally or domestically. I think Vance can do that. He's an approachable guy. He's a likable guy. He doesn't come off to me as a phony kind of career politician type person. It's not like Vance is going to have a major influence on policy. He could, if he has good ideas, he could certainly influence policies. He does have some good ideas. He's in favor of getting rid of the ATF.
Let's hear it.
Who's not in favor of that? He's got some good ideas. Beck has some good ideas.
Yeah.
Trump is surrounding himself with people who have good ideas. Cash Patel, General Flynn. They're all about draining the swamp for real this time. Hopefully they'll get a chance to do that. So I would not be too worried about JD Vance as Trump's vice president. It's just a vice president where Trump is the one who's going to be setting the tempo.
Do you think that JD will lead the way in the opioid crisis, in combating the opioid crisis, given his history and his, I have a feeling
mother's addiction? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And where he's from. I mean, the Rust Belt has been hit so hard by that. So I think it's something that
Trump uses his people to spearhead those types of issues. He had people like Kushner was spearheading the relations with North Korea. A lot of people don't know this, but the reason why Trump went to North Korea and walked across the DMZ was Kushner set that up.
Yeah,
Kushner set up the Abraham Accords, and there are a lot of people in MAGA, especially Anons, who hate Kushner simply because he's Jewish.
Yeah.
But I would I would encourage you to consider getting Kushner's book and reading it. It was endorsed by Trump, and Trump told he told MAGA, everyone who is MAGA should read this
Yeah.
book. It's a great book. Kushner explains a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that happened during the Trump administration, and
It's
and
really good.
and Kushner and Lighthizer were the ones who got the North American, what is it, the USMCA, US Mexico Canada
Yeah.
trade agreement.
Yeah. He did.
Kushner was a key player in setting that up
Yeah.
too.
He,
So I don't want to make this a
yeah.
piece about Kushner, but with JD Vance, whatever skill set he has, Trump will optimize that. Trump is really good at identifying people's abilities, their skills, and finding jobs for them that make the most of their skills.
That's a good point. Now, one thing I do want to say about Kushner's book, it's called Breaking History. And one of the best things about his book is when he writes about his experience with COVID, because he was on the task force with Scarf Lady Deborah Birx. And he just, without actually saying how stupid she was, he really does a good job of communicating just what a dingbat she is. So that's very satisfying to read that part in his book, because he's a good writer and he's diplomatic in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not left.
Can we go back to the diversity thing on the
Sure,
RNC real
yeah,
quick?
yeah.
All right. So a lot of us were like kind of shock and awe at the RNC, like this diverse cast of characters with all their cultural differences. Look, okay, in the past, you can fact check me if I'm wrong, but the RNC has kind of branded itself as a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant organization. And
Yeah.
if you don't meet our criteria, don't even apply. I think it's very wise of Trump to change the tone of the RNC's messaging to actual, real diversity. Look, and this is the way I would say it. The Democrats and liberals and Marxists and all those people on that side of the aisle, when they talk about diversity, what they mean is they are willing to endorse whatever mental illness you want to manifest, as long as you will support their agenda. They want you as a voter, they want you as a donor, and they will tell the world that your mental illness is fine and it's normal and we can accept it and everyone should embrace it. Whether it's trans or whatever it is, Democrats will endorse any bizarre behavior, whether it's pedophilia, it doesn't matter. They'll endorse everything and try to normalize it. And that's their idea of diversity. Trump's message, this is my perspective, is that Trump has not endorsed any of the religious or cultural attitudes and behaviors that were on display during the RNC. He's simply telling people, look, if this is you, if these are your beliefs, if this is your view, I am going to represent you as a voter, as a person who has legitimate concerns. Your concerns may not be religious. They may not be philosophical. They may not be an issue of sexual gender and orientation. Maybe you are trans, but you're really concerned about fiscal spending and taxes. Trump's like, look, I'm your guy. I will lower taxes. I will cut spending. We'll get this reined in. I think Trump is trying to get the RNC to appeal to a broader audience because it just makes sense politically. Not that we have to endorse all of their views and issues as the Republican Party, but it makes sense to have a bigger tent and say, look, if you want to help make America a great place to live, come on into our tent. We'll have discussions about your religion, your philosophy, your gender ideology, whatever. But as long as you want to help us make America great again, come on in. We'll have those conversations. I think that's where this is going. The knee-jerk reaction from, the Puritans out on social media, I think, is a little overblown.
I think so, and it's a religious spirit. It really it's
Yeah.
a it wants to control other people, and, the days of having the RNC be exclusive, like you said, to white Anglo-Saxon Protestant men, that's part of the thing that has repelled people, especially
Democrats
younger.
have weaponized that, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that is being kind of done away with.
Yeah, and I think Trump is doing I mean, I think having his being so close to his family and having so many generations around him and having a son who's a Gen Z and having sons who are he's got from Gen X to millennial to Gen Z, which not many people do. And then he has his grandchildren, and I think that that has really helped him. And he's very young in some ways. He's driving around the golf course with his iPad. He's DJing at Mar-a-Lago into the wee hours of the morning. He's not your typical old boomer at all. And so, I mean, you look at the memes he posts. I mean, he's got an incredible sense of humor, and I think like what you're saying, he's a true populist. He's a
Yeah,
pragmatist, he's a populist, and he knows that if we don't if he doesn't get in office, um, then it's over. It's over, and I'm not saying that lightly, and I think that I also believe that he, of all people, knows that if there were anyone else to do this right now, he would gladly step aside and let them do it.
and
It's
he has
not a
said that. He
it's
has said that many times. I
yeah.
do not need this headache. If I was somebody else who could do it, I would let them do it.
Yeah, it's not about him at all. It's not about him. It's
No.
about getting this country back on track and by extension, all of Western civilization because there's trouble, like, it's in trouble.
Hey,
Yeah,
can we talk about the implosion of the Democrat Party?
yeah, yeah. Let's.
All right.
Yeah,
So while we're watching the movie, the remaking of the Republican Party, the reinvigoration of Trump, I've noticed a dramatic shift in the attitude of MAGA writ large. I'm there's a lot of people that were kind of blackpilled because they were thinking stolen election is coming. How do we beat the steal? The systems still haven't been changed. Like and there was this question about whether Trump was going to be able to pull it off. And in the last couple of weeks, we've seen this just resurgence in patriotism. We're hearing all of these lefties who are like, I'm not going to become a Republican, but holy hell, I cannot vote for the Democrat Party anymore. They're just gone too far. So I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Trump. A lot of people coming over. And at the same time, the Democrat Party is torpedoing their candidate.
yeah.
We have a literal insurrection going on among the Democrats. And it's
Ain't
just,
it
I'm
a
just
beautiful
watching
thing?
this evolve. And I'm like, this is the weirdest freaking timeline. Like, how did we get here? But
Yeah,
but a lot of us have been talking about this very thing for a long time.
yeah.
You go back to our videos from last year. I was talking about like, look, it looks to me like because the Democrats basically had a closed primary. Like in 2020, they basically bought out and forced out all of the
Yeah,
Democrat candidates running against Biden. They basically by Super Tuesday they just X'd them all out and said, drop out. Biden's our guy. We're going to have him run. And the Democrats chose Biden before Super Tuesday in 2020. This year, they didn't even let anyone run against him. And this is kind of the cognitive dissonance that I'm trying to pound through some of these Democrats on social media. It's like, look, you guys keep screaming our democracy, our democracy. Do you realize that your candidate was selected for you this year? You didn't even have a vote. I voted in the primary. Okay, who did you vote against? Oh, there were no candidates running against Joe Biden in the primary. Yes, you got to vote, but your choice was selected. And so when I saw that, a year ago, I was like, oh, they're going to let Biden be the unofficial or the official candidate through the entire year. And then when it comes to the convention, because they changed the convention rules, it allows them to pick their own nominee if the main candidate drops out. I was like, this is totally a setup. They're going to switch out. And a lot of us saw this coming. I'm not the only one. People have been talking about it forever. So that looks like what is actually going to happen. It looks like, to me, the factions inside the Democrat Party, right? So there's the Biden crime family. There is the Obama faction, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, John Kerry, Obama, that group of people. And then there's the California Democrats, Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, and that little hierarchy over there. There's 3 different factions inside the Democrat Party, and they're all warring for control. The Biden crime family doesn't want to leave because they're afraid that their crimes will be prosecuted if they can't stay in office. I think that's their biggest concern. Yeah, they want the money, but I think they're more concerned about prosecution of their crimes if they lose control. Obama, I think, has clearly been controlling the media attacks on Biden, where all of these leaks are coming out to MSNBC and CNN and ABC and Fox. And I think Obama is leaking all this information and pressuring and sort of leading the coup in the media against Biden. All these back and forth, like the Biden campaign says he's not dropping out. And then all these other news reports come out saying, oh, Biden's thinking about dropping out. And the campaign will say, he's not, he's in it for sure. And then the next day, all the media is like, oh, there's leaks that the Biden, is thinking about dropping out. I think all of the media narrative is actually being driven by Obama's people. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. And then you have Nancy Pelosi and her faction. And they're, I think, working mostly within members of the House and the Democrat Party. Nancy is trying to get Democrats in the House to come out against Biden to get him to drop out, because she knows if Biden's at the top of the ticket come November, they're going to lose the House.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all of these different parties working, I think, against each other. And it's just kind of funny to watch the Democrats, literally having their own civil war.
Where do you think the squad fits into this? You posted a video the other day of AOC. Yeah, and she's sounding more and more like Chuck Schumer every day. Like,
yeah,
like the secret, the intelligence community has 6 ways from Sunday at getting it. I'm like, my gosh. So
I think AOC is secretly working with Chuck and Nancy to. I think she's loyal. She's with the jihadis, right? So she's with Ilhan Omar, and Tlaib and all those nut jobs, right? And they are pissed at Biden because Biden has been too pro-Israel for their liking, even though if you look at the views of people who are pro-Israel, they criticize Biden because he's been withholding support for Israel in a lot of ways. So Biden can't make any of those people happy. And I think that I don't really follow AOC a whole lot. I just thought that one video was very telling, where she's literally saying, everyone is terrified of Trump, and we will do anything necessary to make sure he does not get reelected. When she said that, I was like, oh, wow, that's some strong messaging from a member of the House, that they'll do anything necessary. Well, AOC, what are you telling us?
I know.
Does that include maybe not having an election if you believe that you can't win? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was very telling that, she's basically saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it hasn't gotten a lot of circulation. So I think that's interesting as well. I think, was it Shipwrecked Crew on X? He posted a theory, I think yesterday, saying that he thinks that he thinks that Biden is going to bow out, but that none of the key players in the Democrat Party are going to step in for 2024, and instead they're going to regroup and save their
Yeah,
ammunition for
2028.
2028. And so they're going to sort of let go for now, like step back and call it a wash, because they know that there's nobody with enough star power or pull to get the Democrat Party over the line for the 2024 election. Now, that being said, could they still pull out something that would just prevent the election? Because it seems like
Yeah.
that's their only move left on the board right now.
All right, let's get into that. So I really like Ship. He's
Yeah,
a
he's
very
good.
good attorney. He, by the way, Shipwrecked Crew on X on Twitter. I've been following him for years. Very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Former federal prosecutor. He's now a defender. He's defending. He has defended 60 some January 6th defendants, and he is still
Mhm.
defending roughly 30 or 32 of them. Highly recommend following him. Um, he does have a give send go where he is asking people to financially support him so he can do basically pro bono work for J6 defendants who don't have the money to and they can't afford an attorney. But I'm surprised at Ship's acuity in the realm of politics. He knows a lot about California politics. I think he lived there for a long time. He knows a lot about the history of California politics. So he's a good commentator on this subject. And I said virtually the same thing 3 or 4 days ago. I said, look, anyone who has any reasonable intelligence, higher than room temperature IQ, who is a Democrat, who has political aspirations to be the president, is not going to go up against Trump. They're going to wait until 2028 when Trump is not running, because there's no way a Democrat candidate can actually think they're going to beat Trump this year. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
No one is polling. If you poll all the Democrat candidates who've been sort of their names have been thrown out there as possible contenders, none of them are polling higher than Biden. Not one of them. Not Gretchen Whitmer, not Shapiro, not Newsom, no one. There's no one who's going to beat Trump this year. I think a lot of Democrats are resigning themselves to that fact. So if they decide to switch out Biden, it's going to be one of the dumber people in the Democrat Party who doesn't know they have no chance of beating Trump, or unless they're just willing to take. And this whole thing gets really weird because the money, the donations that the Biden-Harris campaign have, that money can't be given to anyone else. If Biden drops out, the new candidate doesn't get that money. They have to do their own fundraising, do their own campaigning.
Yeah, it just seems like they're in the hole. I mean,
And
it seems
nobody
like
wants
they're
to run with Kamala. Uh, Shocking, I know, but but the people in DC, the people who have sources, are like, none of these people want to run with Kamala.
no.
They're looking at Nancy Pelosi is actually endorsing the idea of an open convention where they can pick their own candidate and get rid of Kamala. Sorry, Kamala, that was always going to be the plan. Nobody ever wanted you to be president. They were always going to throw you under the bus and Joe under the bus and pick somebody else. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of interesting watching how this is evolving. Do I have, and to your point, I want to bring something up real quick. So yes, on the one hand, commentators on our side of the aisle, conservative commentators who don't believe that it's possible that they would actually call off the election, their predominant theory is we're going to go to the Democrat convention and then they're going to either get rid of Biden. I'll leave that up to your imagination, or
Well,
they're
he
trying
does have COVID.
to, I know, and they're treating him. And I posted about that yesterday. What are the odds that he might, you
Yeah.
know, uh,
Expire.
suffer a sudden demise? Who knows? They're either going to get rid of him, they're trying to force him out, and he's not going to go willingly. The more that they attack him, the more that they tell him he can't win. He's a stubborn son of a bitch. He's not going to go out
So is
willingly.
Jill.
Oh yeah, I don't think he leaves willingly.
Yeah.
They're going to have to find a way to either put him in the hospital on a ventilator or something.
What do you think about Michelle, Big Mike,
We'll
Michelle
talk about
Obama?
her. So one option is Biden drops out. I don't think he drops out willingly, but maybe he will. The other option is they force him out. That could be done in a number of ways. They could expose, some of his girl sniffing habits publicly. I don't know if they'd go to that length, but Joe has a pretty hefty closet full of skeletons that they could drop some stuff to force him out. And I think that Nancy Pelosi, being who she is, she's trying to be nice and she's trying to use logic at this point. But eventually, Nancy may bring in a larger hammer to try to get rid of Joe. I think that's
Okay.
and Obama too.
I tell
But
you, they're running out of time.
but I am still, and I am now, after the dream I had last night, I'm more convinced that we're not going to have an election in November. So
Okay.
let's talk about the dream real quick.
Before we do
Yeah, go
that,
ahead. No,
hold
jump
on a
in.
second.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a long time here. I was
You
thinking
want to do
maybe
some
we should,
ads?
yeah, maybe we could take a quick break and give
Do some
people a
ads.
chance to stretch their legs. And I do want to address in my comment, I want to thank everybody for your meaningful contributions to the chat. One thing I just want to say is thank you to my moderators, but also sometimes when it comes to the chat, sometimes people like to go down side trails and they sort of get, like a dog on a bone, they just get stuck on a certain thing when we've moved on. And in our chat in Mary Grace land, we kind of like to stay on topic. So if you have a specific topic that you really want to focus on in the chat, I just encourage you to start a channel of your own, or a blog, so that you don't monopolize our chat with your theories. It's just, it kind of annoys people because they're here to focus on what we're talking about. So I would appreciate that. And don't be mean to my moderators because they're volunteers. Um, that's that. So I'm gonna cue up my commercial here. Dave, while I'm doing that, would you please explain to my listeners two things? Red pill, what does that mean? Because it's come up a lot. And then also the idea, just the basics of why we give credence to dreams and visions as Christians. Just
Okay.
real quick.
Yeah. The term red pill is a term commonly used in some communities, and it really means someone who has become awakened to a hidden reality. It comes from the movie The Matrix. And there's two characters. There's Morpheus and there's Neo. And Morpheus, Neo is living inside of a surreal matrix, an unreal world, a fabricated world, a digital world. It's not real. He thinks it's real, but it's not. It's a simulation. And Morpheus has the ability to help Neo see the real world as it really is outside of this matrix. So Morpheus tells him, well, I have a blue pill and I have a red pill. You get to choose. If you take the blue pill, you will just go back to sleep into your little wonderland and everything's fine. But if you take the red pill, you're going to go down the rabbit hole and you're going to see what life is really like and what the world really looks like. So Neo decides to take the red pill and is faced with a stark, frightening, terrifying reality that he didn't know existed. So it's an illustration of red pilling, and being red pilled is the idea is having your mind awakened to the realities of how the world actually works outside of the contrived narrative we've been spoon-fed through churches and colleges and high school and our parents and the media, who all usually create a false narrative, and that's red pilling. Why do we believe in dreams? Go through the Bible, and all throughout scriptures, you see God speaking to people through dreams. Back in the book of Genesis, Joseph, the patriarch, he was a gifted dream interpreter. God would give dreams to people, and Joseph would interpret those dreams. He gave some dreams to Pharaoh about a coming famine, 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, and it saved Egypt from the famine. Book of Daniel, Daniel saw and interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. So dreams are all throughout the scripture. I wrote a book called Dream Interpretation Made Simple. A lot of people don't know this, but God speaks to everyone through dreams. There are a few people who say they don't have dreams. I didn't have dreams for a long time, but God speaks to us through dreams. And even the most silly, mundane, idiotic dreams sometimes hold profound truths if you're willing to look into them and interpret them. All right, that's my soapbox. Are you ready with your...
I was muted. Yeah, I have my commercial queued up. So this is about 3 or 4 minutes. Don't tune it out totally, because the thing is, when you listen to the commercials and you buy from the America First companies that partner with us, it actually gives us a little commission here. And that's what helps me keep the show going and keep the bills paid and things like that. It also helps me to be doing what I do, basically part to full time, and to be a caregiver for my dad. So it's win-win. And so please just consider going and checking these out. I wanted to say one thing about our partners at Synapse Center for Health and Healing. It's official synapse.com. I saw some friends the other day. I was at a local event, and they said that they had one of my friends and her mom had both signed up to be patients, and they're so excited about onboarding with them and about the process that they're using, because it's so different from the traditional system of going into the disease management system that we know of as modern healthcare. And so Synapse does what they call functional medicine. And I did an interview last week with Dr. Troy. You can find it on all of my channels if you want to know more about that. We talked really a lot about autoimmune conditions, and so many people have that. So take a look at that. And if you're wanting to get better and not just take medicine, I definitely recommend that you check this out. And they're going to pop up on our commercial here, but it's officialsynapse.com. Just tell them that Mary Grace sent you. So we're gonna jump to the commercial. Don't go away. Refresh your beverage, because Dave and I are on a roll here, and we're gonna come back and chat some more, maybe about, who knows. I've got some questions in the chat that people want to talk about, and talk about dreams, et cetera, et cetera. So don't go away, guys. And thanks again to my moderators. Love having you guys here. And I have to shout out to my Facebook audience. You guys are amazing. You've been just giving me so much interaction and feedback on the Facebook. And now that Zuckerberg doesn't think Trump is literally Hitler, who knows? Maybe we'll have even better luck over there on Facebook. We'll see. Okay, we'll be back. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, SYNAPSE.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. And you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze-dried and it's shelf-stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show. We are back. I'm Mary Grace, and I've got Dave Hayes with me, Praying Medic. And we have a fantastic conversation going on here on the channel. This is Conspiracy of Truth, episode 17, the Q Plus edition. And we were talking prior to this about all kinds of things, mostly President Trump and the election. Dave was giving a great explanation of what red pill is. A listener just sent me this great graphic. Take the red pill. It's right there. And I just wanted to share that. Thanks, JC. Shout out to you all the way from South Africa. Another thing I wanted to do is give a shout out to our team over at Rumble. The editorial team has put us on the featured live stream for today on Rumble, which is awesome. If you go to Rumble and you click the top of the page while we're streaming and you click the live button, we are in the panel. on the choices of what to watch live, and that's always a great thing. We love being featured over there. So thanks, Rumble, for doing that, and shout out to my guy Michael over at Rumble. Just awesome to see that. Dave, you were talking to us about dreams, and I am going to take a second to go off camera while you're doing this.
Okay.
You had an amazing dream that you think is leading us to believe that there may not be an election.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's amazing. It's
Uh,
concerning.
or
I'll
just
say.
a concerning dream, I guess. To me, all dreams are amazing because, like, how does that work? You know? So, and then,
I
you
yeah.
know, somebody did ask how to remember dreams. And so that's something that you cover in your book, but
Yep.
maybe touch on that because you remember your dreams, but you've actually developed the skill set to do that
Yep.
intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's do dreams real quick. So I wrote this book called Dream Interpretation Made Simple. And I wish I had a copy of it. I should have grabbed one when I went to get another can of LaCroix. That is the key lime LaCroix. That is my beverage of choice most days. So I wrote this book called Dream Interpretation Made Simple because after 25 years of never having a single dream, I started having dreams all the time. Right now, I have dreams every night. And the Lord has shown me a way, a kind of a discipline to a way of remembering my dreams. And that is to, it's hard to do, but if you have a dream, the process is as soon as you wake up, before you do anything, before you turn on the light, before you go to the bathroom, before you go get something to drink, before you do anything, turn over, roll over, go to your nightstand, grab a little pen, have a little flashlight if you need it, and a little note card or something, and write down the basic ideas presented in the dream. I have been journaling my dreams since 2008. And I have stacks and stacks and stacks of note cards of all my dreams. The ones that I can remember. Occasionally, I will forget a dream. Most of the time, I remember them. And my book, Dream Interpretation Made Simple, explains a method for capturing your dreams, receiving more dreams, and then interpreting these funny, weird, symbolic dreams in a biblical way. So I've been having dreams for the last 3 years that have basically suggested that in the future, we're going to go through a time where we lose cell phone service, internet service, some power grid disruption. And so I've been encouraging people on my broadcasts to consider getting prepared for that. And to that effect, to that end, I should say, I wrote this book called Emergency Preparedness and Off-Grid Communication. I became a ham radio operator a couple of years ago. I've been learning about alternate means of communication, various types of radios, and ways that you can communicate that do not require internet or cell phone service. And many of them do not require being plugged into a wall outlet. You can power them with a battery. So yesterday morning, was it yesterday morning? Let's see. Today is Saturday. This CrowdStrike glitch. CrowdStrike does an update on their software, which is used by a lot of computer services that use Microsoft Windows, not consumers like us, but businesses, banks and airports and other companies that have very sensitive infrastructure needs, and they pay to have CrowdStrike as a cybersecurity add-on to their Windows. And somehow CrowdStrike had this little problem with their latest update, and it caused a lot of these systems to crash and to not be able to load. So you had banks shut down, airports shut down, airplanes grounded, and all this. So thanks for the Mary for the graphic. So, this is exactly the kind of thing that the Lord has been showing me for 3 years through dreams. He has been warning me that we're going to have, and I don't know if we're talking about an EMP strike or a nuclear war or a cyber attack. Chris Wray, FBI director, has been warning the country for more than a year that nation states like Iran, China, and Russia have already infiltrated our critical infrastructure, and they are waiting for an opportune time to attack us, whether that is power grids, water distribution, telecoms, we don't know. But Chris Wray has been warning about it. The director of CISA has been warning, same thing, for more than a year. And so I have been I've been sounding the alarm. Get ready, because someone is going to take down internet, cell phone service, and it's going to be a mess when that happens. So now let's get into the dream I had last night. It wouldn't help for me to tell you the dream itself because it was an abstract conceptual dream, and I have a lot of those types of dreams. I have to take those dreams and I have to put them in concrete terms. So if I put this dream in concrete terms, this is what it means. What I saw in the dream was that the election system in Arizona didn't exist anymore. It was gone. And I don't know what happened to it. In the dream, it wasn't shown to me what happened to the election system. I just know that in the dream, there was no election system anymore. It was gone. And I saw about a dozen, plus or minus one or two people, 11, 12, maybe 13 people. They had to come up with a new system of voting or casting ballots or selecting candidates. It was a concept. All right. I didn't see them voting. The concept was the election system was gone and they had to come up with a new way of voting. And so I watched them come together as they brainstormed and spitballed and proposed different ways to do this. And it was chaos. It was absolute chaos. There was no consensus on how to do it. There was no clear way that I saw that looked doable. And in this dream, there's also this crowd of people who are observing this process, and they're very skeptical and doubtful that it's going to happen. There was a lot of criticism, actually, about the ideas that were being brought forward about how they're going to do this voting. A lot of criticism, a lot of doubt and skepticism. And so I watched this process evolve as people representing Arizona were trying to figure out how they were going to vote. And by the end of the dream, there was no consensus or no plan about how to do it. So that dream goes along with a lot of other dreams that I've had that suggest that between now and November, the powers that be are going to do something to sabotage the elections. Now, when this CrowdStrike glitch happened, Maricopa County, we're already here in Maricopa County where I live, we're already in voting season. Early voting, ballots have been sent out and they're coming back to voting centers. And they posted a map yesterday of the voting centers. There's 230 plus voting centers in Maricopa County. About 85% of them were down yesterday, and about 15% of them were operational. And there's a lot of controversy on Twitter back and forth about how they're going to unscrew this thing and make it work and get everything back online before the actual day of voting for the primary, which is July 30th, coming up in 10 days. So I'm concerned. I have legitimate concerns that they are going to do something to sabotage the election because they know that they can't win. So that's the dream. That's my interpretation, and that's what's going on. And Mary, what are your thoughts?
I'm here and I'm back and I'm
Yes, you are.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I want to say about dreams, this dream or any dream or prophetic word or vision, um, is that I do believe, and we've talked about this on the channel before, that God uses these things to give us warnings, but He is not a puppet master. And I don't believe it's God's will to make bad things happen to get us in line, um, any more than I believe that like a father would break his child's legs to get him to love him more.
Right.
It's just not logical. But some people think that. But I think that one of the things that I have seen, and this is scriptural, is that when we get warnings, it is a prodding for us to pray and to take action and to understand that we are partnering with God. And so part of the process is that we become involved. And so it's kind of like when General Flynn says local action has national impact, that God is giving us an opportunity to work alongside him and to petition him to do what it is that he can do. And some of this actually is applicable in the courts of heaven, because there are a lot of legal processes in the spirit realm that take place when believers call on the name of the Lord and leverage his ability to do what he does. And so it's not unlike going into a court of law and reminding the judge, this is what you said, or this is how the system and the legal system works. And so, for example, when it comes to the cross of Jesus Christ, that was a legal transaction. And sometimes we forget that that's what happened. And that when the word of God says that he was the propitiation for our sin, that's a legal term. And so I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on that. You actually have a book on going to the courts of heaven. But this is something that as believers I want to urge people to understand, that a dream or a vision or a prophetic word is not necessarily a foregone conclusion,
Right.
that it's an opportunity and an invitation to go to God in prayer and to petition him in prayer. And we have seen throughout scripture times that the course of history has been changed by the prayers of the people.
Well, Jonah was sent to Nineveh
Yeah.
to warn them that God's going to destroy your city. And they repented and they prayed and they asked God to have mercy, and God didn't destroy them. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, the key thing there with dreams is sometimes God will show you what is going to happen. Sometimes he'll show you what may happen if you don't make a change, intercede, pray, whatever.
Yeah.
So I can't say 100% that we're not going to have elections here in Maricopa County. I can say the dream is concerning, and Denise and I are already praying into that dream.
Okay. And I have a question. This is from the chat from Debbie. She's one of our long-time listeners on Facebook. She says, how do you know the difference between a dream that's a warning and one that's just a dream?
Okay. It's my view that the just a dream is a bad way to categorize dreams.
Okay.
When you look at dreams, you should try to categorize them by the source. Where did they come from? So there are generally three sources of dreams. There is a dream from God. There are dreams from demons. And there are dreams that our soul makes up. Right? So soul dreams actually have a kind of a unique feel and some characteristics that are sort of give you a clue that it's a soul dream. Soul dreams tend to be monotonous, kind of pointless, and don't really have a clear theme in them that or a point that is made that is relevant to what's to anything. And It's my, again, my belief. I'm not dogmatic about this. You're welcome to disagree with me. I believe that most people's dreams are primarily divine dreams from God. I think most people have a lot more dreams from God than they realize. And I think a lot of people attribute divine dreams to being just a dream. I think God is talking to people a lot more often than they realize. They just haven't sat down and come to an understanding of how to decode those dreams. So there are soul dreams, just a dream, and there are demonic dreams. And demonic dreams are also very distinct and different from divine dreams. The key issue in a demonic dream is you'll normally feel an emotion that is negative. So in the dream, you'll either feel lust, shame, guilt, extreme anger, or some negative emotion that is used that can draw you into a pattern of behavior. And that's what the enemy tries to do with when you get dreams from demons. The enemy is trying to draw you into an ungodly behavior, whether it's pornography or self-condemnation with shame, dreams where you feel shamed. There is usually a negative emotion in those demonic dreams. They're usually, the colors are either very dark, a lot of black. People in the dreams may be wearing black, black skin, black eyes, black hair, a lot of dark, muted tones in demonic dreams. You may literally see demons and things of that nature in the dreams. If you spend some time reading about studying dreams, you'll come to the understanding that there are soul dreams that have a certain kind of a flavor to them. There are demonic dreams that are just manifest in different ways. They appear differently. Sensations are different. And then there are divine dreams that generally have some kind of a message in them that is relevant to your life situation. Usually, that's kind of a brief description of how you can discern the difference.
Sorry, I had myself muted. Debbie has a lot of questions, and I think a lot of people probably do as we go into this topic. I wanted to use this opportunity to let people know that Dave has a prolific body of work in both writing and videos, which you can find on his website. He has two websites, and he also has a Telegram channel. And Dave is a writer and a teacher at heart. And so, Dave, can you tell us what's the best place for people to find your teaching on dreams and spirituality, and how to get dialed into that, and also a little bit about your Telegram channel, because that's really a great resource.
Yep. So yes, I'm a teacher. I am an Ephesians 4:11 and 12 guy. The Lord appointed some to be apostles, prophets, pastors, teachers, evangelists, for equipping, training and equipping the saints for the work of ministry. I do training and equipping. That's what I do. I train and equip people for supernatural ministry, whether that is physical healing, emotional healing, deliverance, receiving revelation from God in the form of dreams and visions, all of the supernatural fun stuff that God wants to do with us. I teach on those subjects. So my books in the Made Simple series are Divine Healing Made Simple, Seeing in the Spirit Made Simple, Hearing God's Voice Made Simple, Dream Interpretation Made Simple. Yes, there is a book called Traveling in the Spirit Made Simple too, because a lot of us travel in the Spirit in the same way that the apostles and prophets did when you're reading the Bible. Amazon is a good place to find my books. I have an author page there that has all of my 20 books, except for a couple of the Q books, which are not on Amazon.
They hate you.
Yes.
Here's one of your Q books.
Yeah, that's one of my Q books. That's This Is Not a Game. That's the third one, most recent one. That one is on Amazon. Prayingmedic.com is the best place to go to find my resources. There are tabs there for my podcast, my articles, videos, books, classes. Yes, I have classes. I have some online video-based classes. One of them is on divine healing. The other one is on seeing in the spirit. And I have a book page. You can click on that, click on the book tab. It'll take you to all my books. Any of the books that are not available on Amazon, you can get them on Barnes & Noble or a couple other websites. And my Rumble channel. My Rumble channel is a really good place to go to look at my videos. I've got tons and tons of videos where I teach on just free information on everything from dream interpretation to traveling the spirit, how to see in the spirit, how to release power for miracles, how to exercise authority, how to find your divine destiny. Um, I, I have a lot of different videos on my Rumble channel, all free stuff. Go there and check it out.
Good. I love it. And the thing I like about you, Dave, is that how do I say this? You're not like one of those woo-woo guys. I mean,
Uh,
that's a
I wish I
compliment.
didn't know what you were talking about.
You like you're teaching stuff that really that touches people deeply at an emotional level, but you're not manipulating people emotionally to get them there. That's a compliment.
Okay.
It is. And because I think that it's we come across people in our movement who do push people's emotional buttons, and it's a little bit gross sometimes. And so I just want to compliment you on that, because you are very, very down to earth. You get to the brass tacks and you just give people the facts and the information, but also it's done from a heart of a teacher, and you want people to be healed. And so the sincerity and the integrity of what you're doing comes through. So,
Thanks.
yeah, you're welcome.
If you ever catch me doing that stuff, you can crack me on the back of the head and say, knock it off.
I will. I will. I want to jump over to the Rumble chat for just a second. My Rumble chat doesn't show up in the feed on my software, which is why I'm not always, if it looks like I'm looking off to the side, it's because I'm, looking at a bunch of different things at one time. I'm wearing all the hats. Maritac just gave us a $10 super chat. That's awesome. Thank you. And says prayers for our nation. So yes, we do want to pray for our nation. So thank you for that. I don't know if anybody knows, you can give super chats on Rumble, and you can also give stars on Facebook. There's a way to do that, and all of portion of that goes to the channel. And I also have a subscription now on Facebook. You can subscribe to my exclusive community on Facebook, and you will be able to get better connection with me and more exclusive content and things like that. So that's a new thing. And they decided that they like me, and they made me eligible to have a subscription tab. I know. I think Zuckerberg is changing. Kat Kerr said a long time ago that she's been praying for Mark Zuckerberg, and she's been active on Facebook, and she just talks to him when she does her live streams. Like she's she's a grandmother, right? So she's
Yeah. Yeah.
telling him, like, you can change and you don't have to stay this way. So
Hey, Mary.
yeah.
What do you think about the change in Elon Musk over the last year?
I It's amazing. It's amazing. I
It
think
is,
he
isn't
has, yeah, he has a ways to go. But
it?
I think considering that he's such an egghead, and sometimes, like, the first time I ever heard him talk, I was so annoyed because he's just kind of spacey. But
He's a geek.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a geek. So, but seeing him come out and endorse Trump wholeheartedly over within minutes of the assassination attempt, I thought that spoke volumes. And
He's apparently donating $45 million a month to a PAC for Trump.
45 million a month. I didn't know it was a month. I
It's
knew
a
he was
month.
doing a big donation.
No,
The
Wall
other
Street
thing,
Journal was reporting that he committed to 45 million a month.
oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
the other thing that I think is remarkable is that was so funny is that he's just been trolling the left like crazy this week on X, especially
Yep.
with everything that happened, like the slanted roof, all of the excuses that we're seeing for the Secret Service not doing their job. He's
Yeah.
just been trolling like crazy. Speaking of donating, I did want to say one thing about Zuckerberg is that there was so if you're not sure what I'm saying when I refer to Zuckerberg, he's saying basically that what he witnessed in Trump was that it was really one of the most badass things he's ever seen. And but the other thing he said in the snippet that I caught, and I don't think a lot of people caught this, is first of all, he said he's not endorsing, but he did say that he in the very beginning of this clip, he said in the past I've done things directly with elections. I'm giving you what I think I heard. I've got to go back and listen, but
I heard the
basically
same thing.
he was saying I'm not involved this year in the way that I've been in the past, which for those who didn't get it back in 2020, he financed these operations to do ballot harvesting and drop boxes, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that he put into the left's effort to steal the election. So this is huge. So I just wanted to point that out. I didn't want to forget about it. But look at going back to Elon Musk. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around him, right? Around the AI, around things he's said in the past. I have friends who don't think he's a good guy, who think that he's on the wrong side of history, but you know, I think that he's moving in the direction of freedom, and he is a proponent of free speech. Now, it would be really nice if he would restore some of the accounts that people got suspended, and he said he would restore them. I'd like to see him keep his word on that and on some other things. But I mean, he's dealing with, I mean, talk about herding cats. He bought a platform that is just staffed by thousands of blue-haired meanies who basically hate themselves and hate freedom and free speech. And so he's had to deal with that. And I think it's amazing. Um, and so we'll see what happens, but you know, keep him in your prayers, everybody. Pray for
Yeah.
him, pray for his safety, pray for Mark Zuckerberg. One of the things that I have always said about Facebook, people tell me, get off Facebook, get off Facebook. And my answer to that is it actually belongs to us. Facebook belongs to us. It was paid for and created by the US government, and it's ours. And I'm not giving it back. I am praying that we take it back. And so, Dave, it's
There you
true,
go.
right? It's
Hey, I have a
ours.
Facebook page. I
Yeah.
sometimes post on it. Come on, I'm with you.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people on Facebook that I mean, I have seen a major shift in the people that I interact with on Facebook. You know, people are awake, and Facebook has, you know, aside from X, it really is the biggest platform in the world that has more uh users than any other social media platform. And so as Christians, why would we walk away from that opportunity to spread the truth? Now, do they censor us sometimes? Yeah, they do. And do they make it hard to do our job? Yes, they do. Um, but here we are, and we're making headway, and we keep going. And I pray for strategy, and God gives me strategy for how to get around the algorithm. So guys, when you see puppies on my feed, there's a reason for that. All right. So
It's we are in an information war,
yeah.
and Facebook is one of the largest information battlefields on the
Yeah,
planet. So it
exactly.
does actually behoove us, and it does advance our strategies if we do a little bit of warfare on enemy territory and try to take back some of that real estate. So yeah, I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's what General Flynn told us, right? Don't leave the battlefield. Hey, I want to give a shout out. We have a good friend of the channel in the chat here over on Facebook. Speaking of, Ann Vandersteel is giving me a shout out here. She says, "Mary Grace Media, you're a true patriot, defender of freedom. Your courage in speaking the truth is a gift to us all." Right back at you, Ann. And for those of you who are not following Ann's work, she's doing some incredible work, especially down on the border. She's been in Panama. She's reported live from what's happening on from the border invasion. And so I do encourage you to give her a follow. She's been on here on our show very recently. So hi, Anne. Good to see you. All right. So where are we going to go now? I wanted to ask you quickly about something that somebody asked, and this is I want to talk about the RNC and the very end of the RNC after Trump's speech. We heard an opera song.
Nessun Dorma.
Yes, and people are wondering why opera. And this is amazing. Of course, the Anons were right on it right away. And it's one of those things where, like, you said Anons cheer at certain things. Well, this is something that had everybody cheering. Nessun Dorma means no one sleeps. And Q told us at one point they won't be able to walk down the street. And I think he also meant they won't be able to sleep at night. So talk about this, his
All
choice.
right.
Also, President Trump was so happy during the song. He was like, he was smiling and he had his eyes closed, imagining the future. So talk about that.
All right. I want to talk about, I'll segue here real quick. And by the way, are you able to play videos over us if I point you to a Twitter video or not?
I can't play it over us, but I can. Oh, you mean to bring it into the
Bring it in.
stream? Well, let me check with my producer and see if she can do that. Hold
All right.
on just a second. Let me mute myself so I
Okay.
can talk to
Yeah,
me,
that's fine.
myself, and
So
I.
I'll talk about Nessun Dorma. All right. So Trump is giving his speech, and yes, it was long. It was almost 2 hours. But if you've been to a Trump rally or you've listened to a Trump rally virtually, you know that Trump will go on and on and on until he's done talking, and it might be 2 hours. This is how he is. People who are used to like the short 10-minute speeches at the convention were like, when is he going to stop? Quite a shocking cultural experience, but I just want to opine on this for just a minute. After his attempted assassination, Trump knew that his first public appearance, where he got to speak about the shooting, the entire world would be watching. People on the left, people on the right, people in the middle, people of all from different countries around the world, people were going to be listening to what Trump was going to say. Many of those people have never heard Trump lay out his plan for the future of America. So I think it was brilliant to just basically do a rally speech where he talks about geopolitics, what's going to happen in North Korea, and what will happen in Afghanistan, and what happens here, and what about domestically, and how about the border, and all of his issues. For people who are used to listening to Trump talk and like, oh, this is another rally speech. Yes, okay, but this message was not for you. As Q remind us, sometimes not all messages are for Anons. You can't take everything that Trump says and think that that is a message for you. A lot of what Trump said at the RNC was he was messaging other people who have never heard him talk. So let's get to Nessun Dorma. So at the end of his message, the psalm comes on, and it's a guy. He's an opera singer. He's there in the auditorium, and he's singing this opera song. And it's this song called Nessun Dorma. And the Anons who know the history of Q and Trump and the deep state and the battle that Trump has been waging against the corrupt permanent bureaucracy, when they heard that song, they're like, oh, wait a minute, Trump is signaling to us something. Like he closes out the RNC with this song it's the song at the end of the film, Sum of All Fears. All right. I have been reminding people for 3 years that the film Sum of All Fears has a major message for us. To wit, the basic plot line of Sum of All Fears is Clancy novel and then turned into a film. A couple of evil people who are still holding on to a Nazi fascist ideology hatch a plot to take over the world, control the world. And that Q has suggested, because if you go through the Q posts, you'll see Sum of All Fears as a signature in at least 7 or 8 posts. And those messages that have Sum of All Fears at the bottom are talking about this idea that is actually happening right now, where there are people in positions of power who want to create a fascist superstate. That's their end game. That's their goal. Nancy Pelosi talking to you. So the plot of the movie is they launch, these bad guys steal or buy sort of a nuclear warhead, and they find a way to weaponize it, and they detonate a nuclear warhead in the United States at an event that the president is attending. And it's a false flag attack. False flag means it is an attack that is made to implicate somebody other than the person who actually pulled it off. So these guys set this whole thing up to make it look like Russia detonated a nuclear bomb to try to kill the president in the United States to start World War III. And then the film plays out, and there's this back and forth about, is World War III actually going to happen? And the film has a happy ending, more or less, and it closes with the song Nessun Dorma, as all of the deep state traitors are rounded up to the song Nessun Dorma. Okay, so that song, in the minds of researchers and Anons and Q followers, and probably Trump, are we able to do the video or not? She's got herself muted.
I haven't figured out how to bring it in, but if
Don't worry
there's
about it.
if there's a
Don't worry about it.
tweet,
Okay. It's a tweet. It's a tweet. It's on my Twitter feed from last night.
All right, hold
It is.
on.
It's a video from the Trump campaign's comms deputy director, where she's asked about whether Trump was sending a signal with the song Nessun Dorma, and she responds to Thomas Paine about his question about anyway.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to find it. I may just hold it up to the screen for you guys to see. One thing I want to say too is, when it comes to President Trump and his connection to the Anons, this is important because we have a lot of new people. Today's broadcast, I mentioned that our broadcast today is the Q Plus edition of Conspiracy of Truth, Q Plus.
Who is Q Plus?
Who is Q Plus? Hey guys, there's a clue right there on the screen. His name starts with T and ends with Trump. So how do we know?
We know because we've done a lot of research.
Yeah.
And there are several posts on the board on Q's platform, on 4chan and 8chan and 8kun and all the other places where Q posts. And some of those posts, most of them end with the letter Q. Q is Q's signature. Some of them end with the signature Q plus. And we have determined that Q plus is actually Trump. And when you see a message on the board that ends with Q plus, that's a message that Trump is personally sending to the board, to the Anons and researchers. So The relevance of the song Nessun Dorma is the concept is that basically we believe Trump was sending a message to the deep state. We know what you're doing. We're going to round you up, and that we're going to have a happy ending to this movie. And just like the Sum of All Fears, where this song is at the end, it's a message. And the video that Mary's looking for,
I found it. You guys hang on, hang
you
on. I'm gonna
found,
bring it in. Yeah. Just hold on, hold on. Go ahead, keep talking.
So the deputy comms director for the Trump campaign is asked by, what's his name? Payne. I forget his first name. It's not
Thomas
Thomas.
Paine.
Is that his name?
Charles Paine. Charles Paine.
Charles Payne. Sorry, I said Thomas. Thomas Payne. Not the same one. Charles Payne asks her, okay, everyone online wants to know what the heck is up with this song Nessun Dorma at the end of the RNC convention. Is Trump sending a message to the deep state? And he kind of goes into a little explanation about the history, and he knows it's from the film Sum of All Fears. So he asks her if there is a message in there, and she says, well, I can neither confirm nor deny whether the message was sent. But then she elaborates a little bit and says, but you know, Melania Trump did say earlier in the week, and she goes into the explanation of what Melania says, and then she gets around to this thing with Trump. And Trump pointed out in his message, and this is what the comms director said, that Trump, it wants America to know we have been thinking too small. We've been dreaming too small. We need to dream bigger, think bigger, because Trump has bigger plans for this country than anyone can imagine. And her message to us is we need to start thinking bigger and dreaming bigger. And
I've been telling people this for so long.
Yeah. And I think that yes, Nessun Dorma was a message.
Yeah.
And yes, we need to be thinking bigger, dreaming bigger.
Is it kind of like the envelope?
Our expectation needs to be bigger about what we can do.
Yeah. So it's like the envelopes at the Bush funeral, right?
Yeah.
Sort of. Okay. I got the video here. I'm going to play it. So it's going to mute us while I play it. So just hang out, everybody. This is the video that Dave has just been referencing.
Let you go because there's an interesting theory out there that Trump picked the last song, right, Nessun Dorma, to send a message to deep state actors, in part because it was at the end of the movie Some of Our All Fears, and we know that movie was about getting rid of terrorists and deep state actors. You're part of the communications teams. Have you guys thought it through that much?
I can neither confirm nor deny it's classified. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You did hear, though, from First Lady Melania Trump earlier in the week. She mentioned her husband is a lover of music. How beautiful, the drama of opera, so beautiful. But I'll leave you with this. President Trump did say last night, for far too long, the American people have expected and accepted far too little from their own government. We know part of his message is to drain the swamp and return government to being of for and by the people. And how poetic and operatic is that?
Yeah, and of course, deep state actors beware. Caroline, thank you very much. Talk to you again soon.
All right.
Deep state actors beware.
You heard it from the horse's mouth.
Oh, that's good. So that's on Dave's X account. And yeah, so the thing I think that's really interesting here too is Melania was talking about how her husband's a lover of music, and it's so funny to me when people think that Melania is on the sidelines, that she and Trump, are not connected, that she's been absent from this whole process. I mean, I see people saying all the time, well, where's Melania? Where's Melania? First of all, she's raising her son. But secondly, for anyone who thinks that Melania is not dialed in, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. And, she came up and sort of surprised Trump at the end. And it was the sweetest thing. And all you have to do is look at their body language, and you can tell that they're just, they're friends, they're best friends. It's not, this is not somebody that, she's not a trophy wife. She's not just sitting on the outskirts. She's incredibly involved, and she's very, very smart. And she has raised her son to be multilingual. There's so much depth to Melania. It's crazy to me that people think that she's just a peripheral, accessory to Trump's ego or presidency. It's crazy.
Yeah, the cameras were not on Melania when Trump was talking about his little conversation with the Reverend about his profanity. But I guarantee you, she had a Cheshire cat smile when because he has said, "Well, Melania keeps telling me I shouldn't use profanity, but you know."
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Melania had some conversations with the Reverend Graham.
Yeah, probably.
So, and she's been a tremendous influence on him, and it is pretty widely known, at least in the in the circles that actually understand Trump, is that Melania has had a big influence on him even from the start. And a lot of, some people don't know that, she wouldn't give him her number when they first met. I mean, she wasn't out there husband chasing. She wasn't chasing a billionaire. She didn't actually want to go out with him.
Huh,
And
interesting.
so,
I did not know that.
yeah, so, she's her own person. And she's very much an individual and had her own career prior to meeting Trump. So I just want to be clear about that.
Yep.
So I think, Dave, there's so many things we could talk about now, so much we could go into, but I think this is probably a good place to land it today.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm so grateful for your time and so happy that you're able to be here with us. And I think that just judging from the chat, we've got people that are very engaged, but I also think that there's a lot to digest from what we talked about today. And we probably should just leave it at that. Do you have anything else to add for our listeners before we go today?
Yeah, I would just, you know, it's kind of cliche if you listen to my broadcasts. I can't stress enough the importance of praying for Trump, both President Trump, Melania, his security detail, the people on his team. We need to keep them in prayer every single day because there is literally a bullseye on them. They're being targeted by the powers that should not be. And the only way they're going to be kept safe, the only way they're going to be able to make America great again is if we keep them in prayer every day, keep them covered in prayer, declare the plans of the enemy will be destroyed and God's plans will be established. That is my my exhortation to everyone listening.
Amen. And I will second that. And pray for me, pray for Dave, pray for our families. The emotional toll that this takes on us, the physical toll, it's and I'm not saying this to get sympathy. I just want people to understand that it's very intense, and our calling, part of what we're called to do is to dig and research and look at multiple sources of information constantly. And because we're doing that, it's a unique calling, and it's very different from some of our friends and family are. And because of that, it's kind of a setting apart, and it's intense. It's a level of intensity that's ongoing, and so we do need prayers for strength, for emotional strength, for physical strength. And I'm just going to be honest with you and tell you that it's been a rough week for me. I'm pretty tired, but I'm going to keep going because it's what I'm called to do, and I know that God will get me through. But I'm trying to be a little more vulnerable with you guys because I'm not superhuman, and it's just important that we be able to stay in the fight here. And I do thank all of you who've reached out and who've been praying for me and my family, for my dad. It means a lot, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And so remember also just to follow the channel, get on the mailing list so that you don't miss any more shows, and just you know pray, protect your mind, control your emotions, and allow God to use you in the way that is best for you and your family. But whatever you do, don't put your head in the sand. Don't tune out. Be involved and be intentional about how you're involved. And thank you again, everybody, for being here. MaryGraceMedia.com, PrayingMedic.com. We are on multiple social media channels, and you can follow us on the place where you deem best. Everybody have a great day, and get outside and just get refilled. We'll see you back here soon.